women are being murdered. There's no dogs being killed. No one's going around killing dogs. Women are being murdered in this film, and it's that's who the dog killer is. It's By the end of this episode, you will have discovered how Under the Silver Lake revealed Hollywood's biggest secret, and no, it's not what you think it is. But before we can get to that, we need to discuss the clues, genius, symbolism, conspiracy, and misdirection of Under the Silver Lake. Now join me and the Kino Corner as we go down this frightening rabbit hole. When I first saw it at Cannes, my immediate reaction was to call it Thomas Pynchon's Eyes Wide Shut for the Twitter age. And I think that's an accurate description of this movie.
Yeah, is Pynchonian a word?
So I want to go as far as to say that Under the Silver Lake, it might be the most important film of the 21st century, which is quite a bold statement to say, but I don't think there's anything that's come out in cinema this decade that like speaks so much truth as this movie does. I think, I'll get to it later, but I just want to preface and say specifically though, the scene with the songwriter is really all that matters in this movie above everything else, above all the misdirection. Yeah. And it's funny because that important scene comes in like the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
Like nothing, like you just got the most important answer that this film is saying right in the middle of the movie, and really everything after that, it just doesn't matter. Like the movie could really end right there, and you get that's what matters most.
In a way, it's
for the themes and the message of the film, at least.
In a way, I mean, to be like a high school English teacher, by having that in the middle, it does do like the Freytag's pyramid of like it's the denouement from there on out, and it's actually a pretty long denouement, because that is the climax. I would say that is the climax of the film, and the rest is just sort of like the climax unraveling a bit until he sort of finds his place in the world, like amidst this revelation.
Yeah, which he really never does find his place in the world, I would say, by the end. This is probably the most detailed movie since Kubrick, I would even say. Like with how many like hidden messages that are like put in this film, whether important or misdirection, and like the fact that it has an obsessive subreddit to this day, fucking like X amount of years later, and is still like trying to like unravel a lot of the mysteries of this film, I think speaks a lot to it. And there's really like, what other film, especially something like this, that's like not a big film that people know about, has like that kind of obsessive. But I think a lot of the messages in the film, much like what Sam is pursuing, is a lot of like misdirection and like meaningless stuff that like ultimately doesn't matter. Like you still have these fucking Redditors on what I think is David Robert Mitchell's wild goose chase for these people, because he's creating a conspiracy about a conspiracy film.
And they're playing into the character that Andrew Garfield is, where it's bored millennials who have no excitement in their life, who are living meaningless lives, who are trying to create meaning out of like uncovering some conspiracy. Like
he's literally me for real.
What I told you, like when I was watching, because I'd only seen this once before. I saw this in the cinema when it came out, and I was kind of nonplussed by it. Like it didn't really strike me that much, but I hadn't gone down like the schizo rabbit hole. You
weren't based yet.
I wasn't based yet, and I really liked it on the second time. And what I noted, I think this movie is better on a second or third viewing.
I mean, this is my 10th viewing, and it just like, even on the 10th viewing, I'm still like discovering new stuff. That's how layered this film is, and you really can't say that about even the most of the top percentile of films.
Yeah, but what I was saying, that something I thought was actually kind of cool that they did in this is that this is like a De Palma-esque. I mean, it's obviously very inspired by De Palma, Lynch, a lot of the 40s and 50s noir. Yeah, and but most of those movies, if not all of them, have some sort of real like inciting action to actually propel the story forward. And the inciting action in this, like he's already kind of in that whole conspiracy way of thinking before. Yeah. The inciting action is that this girl moves out of his apartment building. Like it's really like it's a nothing exciting action, like inciting action, because it's really not about what propels this investigation is really, he's already in the investigation when he finds out that she has supposedly died.
Yeah.
So what really propels his investigation into all of this is his boredom.
Yeah. Well,
and his obsession.
Well, it's not even just boredom. It's just his loneliness. And
Yeah.
that's like the most beautiful thing about this film is something I didn't appreciate the first viewing. I remember seeing this the first time and I got to the end and I'm like, that was it. That's how it ends. And it felt so anticlimactic, and it felt like I wanted this grander conspiracy, this grander payoff, but that I was missing the point of the film completely.
Yeah.
And you have all this thing about dog killer throughout the film. And, people keep being like, oh, is he the dog killer? Blah, blah, blah. People talk about it online and whatnot. And that doesn't matter, first off. Second of all, the reason he carries the dog treats around is because he misses his ex. Like, it has nothing to do with dogs and women are the same thing in this movie.
Yeah.
That's why, the women are barking constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Are dogs being murdered in LA? No. Women are being murdered. There's no dogs being killed. No one's going around killing dogs. Women are being murdered in this film, and it's by Hollywood. That's who the dog killer is. It's Hollywood itself.
Yeah.
It's all a metaphor. Hollywood's the dog killer. Women are the dogs. That's the whole metaphor right there. He's not like a dog killer. He's not a woman killer.
I love the one, like the company that is a prostitution company where they have shooting stars, but it's all Hollywood
shooting
actresses.
Loads into stars.
Yeah, but it's all Hollywood actresses. And I mean, it is a little on the nose, but it is like, yeah, a lot of actresses are treated like prostitutes.
Yeah.
A lot of actors are treated like prostitutes.
But like
too,
so much of life is on the nose with this stuff and like conspiracies and whatnot. So like it's only appropriate that in this film it's on the nose as well. I will say though, even though I don't believe he's the dog killer at all, because the theory I just said is the correct theory, I do like this alternate theory that I came up with when watching it on my 10th viewing this time is, and this is more of course, because of the MK Ultra branding, I'm going to think of this more, but I do like the concept of maybe he's been MK Ultra into being the dog killer from all the codes that he sees and whatnot and hears. And that's why, and he's always having these nightmares about like killing the dogs. So, and because dog equal women and whatnot. So I do think that's like, I don't think that's actually it, but I think it kind of also fits that he could very well be MK Ultra'd into becoming this serial killer. And he does that at night. Because one of you mentioned sleepwalking when we were watching the movie. And then that's kind of like, I like that there's so many different conspiracies going on in this film between, the actual plot of the movie with the underground tombs, with the songwriter, with the owl's kiss, with the dog killer, with just like any other sort of like random codes or whatever, because there's just so much in this film. And you could even say that it mimics real life in the way it's like that the elites will throw out these misdirection conspiracies for us to chase, these white rabbits and whatnot, and lead to nothing.
Well, I also think too, it's a way for Mitchell to have fun with the audience, because he, having all the pizza, like having these different conspiracies and having things that they don't talk about, but patterns that we know or patterns that we then recognize, and we're like, wait, we're recognizing this pattern here, because we start to then think like Andrew Garfield's character in here. We start kind of participating in seeing patterns that even Andrew Garfield's not seeing. So I think it's really just, I think it's a fun way to kind of get audience participation, like to actively engage with the movie as opposed to like passively just seeing him maybe uncover this stuff.
And like there's a lot of like phallic imagery, a lot of it's literal between like just drawing the dicks on the car, scratching it. There's the dick on the stall wall, which has like the hobo code stuff on the other side of it.
That was I loved the hobo code stuff.
Yeah. So he includes all that phallic imagery because it's like, look, because he explicitly talks about it with like all the advertisements and stuff like that. And then he's like continuing to throw it around where it's like, you have the unconsciousness of the
look
ad.
At here, right here, just a butt shot, like, because they're talking about this like over sexualization in media and how like sex and media is like made for mind control, and then they'll like put the phallic stuff in. Also, just random like ass shots. You know, having the one lady just always have her tits out.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's that kind of stuff that's just it's playing into like the movie
auditions.
Yeah, movie
right there in a garage with some fucking like sketchy looking dude in a wife beater.
Yeah,
and everyone is wearing the same outfit.
Yeah, it's very ironic. Anyone that's like called this movie or David Robert Mitchell misogynistic, because to be honest, it's actually more feminist, which in like the actual meaning, not like fucking today's garbage stuff, but like, you know, talking about like how women are treated like fucking dogs and they're treated like meat and they're fucking prostitutes in Hollywood.
Yeah, especially in Hollywood, yeah.
So like this film is like actually very based for all sides of the political spectrum. If you're not like a complete retard focusing on like idpol,
I like how one of the girls, the girl with the balloons.
Yeah,
you know, she's part of that prostitution ring, and he's like, "Oh, so you're a star?" And she goes, "From 5 to 6 months."
Yeah,
and
he was on like a soap opera or something.
Yeah, she was on a soap opera as a baby.
Yeah,
but it's like okay, so she was exploited like early on, and now she's like a has-been child actress, even though she was a fucking baby when you know she was in there. But now she's relegated as a post-child actress, relegated
as a balloon girl.
That's
prostitute.
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on the fact that she was exploited, but I did see it as not a motif, but I saw it as a significant note.
Yeah.
I thought the scene when he's in the bathtub after he got skunked and he's with his kind of girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he's talking about like, do you feel like there are people that use the media and they communicate with themselves, but it's only for them? And I thought that was very insightful. I wonder if that was the filmmaker's inspiration for making the movie to begin with. If he thought he saw patterns in media that elites would use to communicate with each other through the mainstream, kind of like indigo children type stuff. Where you have these like in Code Geass. Do you remember how there was like the intelligence agency that had all the high schoolers in it? And
I don't remember
all
it
at
that
high
well.
school.
It's been a while since I've seen Code Geass.
Well, that I mean, they talk about making the world's biggest pizza and having like the biggest pizza party ever, like in Code Geass. But anyway,
Sauce.
they talk about how you have these. In Code Geass, in that anime, there's an intelligence agency made of high school students.
Yeah,
they're like legit.
Yeah,
they're in high school. They're high schoolers. They're also intelligence assets.
Also
right?
known
this
as
is kind
kids
of like
who use Twitter.
Yeah,
but this would be like, you know, I dated someone that would talk about this stuff like very in the know, and like basically indigo children are not aliens. They're literally intelligence babies.
Yeah.
Right? That you have an intelligence network. And they do that with the media.
What do you think the point is of like elites sending secret codes to each other through like public means
rather than just like texting each other?
Well, I mean, there's the type in this one where it's like very hyper specific, esoteric like symbols that are very specific. But I mean, they do it. You can like zoom back and see that they do it with like signaling. Like how to speak, how to act, the codes of conduct if you're in this club, and they definitely use all the mainstream media platforms to like broadcast like where the narrative is going.
Yeah,
with that.
Where the narrative is going, I think also right. It's to like broadcast to all the other elites. Like, look, I made this piece of media. It has the correct signaling in it so that you know I'm one of the crew.
Yeah.
So you know that I'm not again, like I'm part of you, but it has to be this like public signal or, you know, public presentation of it.
You were talking about like communicating through the media. I just finished a book in the Warhammer series, the Horus Heresy. It was called The Descent of Angels. And the planet they were trying to to make compliant to the imperial order was able to synchronize in ways that they couldn't comprehend. So like the Marines, who are like the Imperials, they're trying to like make this planet compliant, but the non-compliant planet of just like ordinary non-genetically enhanced humans were able to synchronize in real time, like everywhere, as if they were communicating with their phones.
Okay.
And as if they were communicating with their phones, as if they were like emailing and phone calling, but they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
They were just so in sync that it was like it was kind of
like a good way to get it out on a
right?
scale.
So if you're going to, you know, it's a religion of sorts, right? So like you can think of like religion as having certain benefits to like keeping people having a kind of connection, right? Like you can also do that through the media. Like you don't have to reinvent the wheel to realize there are certain evolutionary advantages and like pragmatic side effects of having like shared mythology, shared messaging, like shared culture, shared references. So you could do that with a book, right? You could also do that with a just like insider track. And so if you put that insider track in messaging, you can shape society in two ways. You'll be shaping some people subliminally and unconsciously, and then some people who will feel satisfied that, oh, I'm not being subliminally affected. I'm just recognizing.
We see you, we hear
like
you.
the inside baseball. I'm just recognizing the inside baseball. I'm not being subliminally affected by it. I'm almost
because it's conscious.
vicariously participating.
Yeah, I mean, you bring religion into it, and we're literally describing the cathedral, like that concepts.
Well, it's also like if you like with religion, you know, like with religion comes a lot of symbols. It's like, so if you're watching a movie, right, and you see stigmata, like a nail go through somebody's hand, you see, you know, a cross type of thing. You see, I mean, there's so many, like someone going underground, like under the Silver Lake, how they go into these underground tombs. It's like descent into Hades, you know. It is not so much like we might think it's subliminal, but it's really just that we instantly recognize.
It's
like,
archetypical.
We don't even think about it. We see it and we instantly know. If the elites are going to be communicating with each other, right? If there's going to be some sort of like communicating through the media, all they have to do is have a separate set of shared symbols where they understand what and you know, this like the whole homeless symbols thing. It's like a separate set of shared symbols that they instantly understand. And you know,
yeah, I feel like most people identify with Andrew Garfield, but I really identified as the Hobo King.
Andrew Garfield, literally me.
The Hobo King. No, the Hobo King is the most stereotypical LA character.
He represents LA. They're all homeless.
Yeah, exactly.
And they all think they're kings.
I want to point out a scene that just came up on screen, which was the one with him and Topher Grace when he has the drone and he's just like spying in on a woman, which is like very De Palma-esque, you know,
like Body Double.
Yeah, with that. And I just thought like that scene was so weird, and like just seeing it again now, it's like making me think, is that supposed to be just another actress that's like fucking, you're seeing a glimpse of her like behind the scenes when she's by herself, like how miserable she is for this fucking LA lifestyle that they're all like slaves to.
You don't know why she's miserable. She just happens to be miserable.
But it's just interesting because that's the only time I can think of, at least, where you see a woman really by herself that's like sitting alone with her thoughts and not like someone else,
I mean,
or doing something.
And the women in public in this, they're obviously like being trafficked and mistreated in various ways, but they're always like
putting on a show.
And that's very LA. You know, they're always like happy, bubbly, like like literally down for whatever. Oh, you want to go show me where the songwriter's house is? Let's go.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's no surprise that the people who brings him to the songwriter, the whores, the prostitutes. Of course they know where the songwriter is. You know, he's like, oh, I wrote that one between a blowjob and an omelet because, you know, those are the fucking, that's who knows where he lives.
Yeah.
You know, there's no one that comes to him except for the fucking prostitutes and shit like that. They're talking about the movie Seventh Heaven at the beginning of the movie, and Jefferson Sevens, the billionaire, is Sevens' last name, going in an underground tomb to go to a heaven. So I thought that was just like, there's just interesting wordplay like that. The poster of the movie of Severance's daughter that dies, she's in the same position as like Jeffrey Dahmer would put like his victims. And that
the Playboy cover.
Yeah, well, the Playboy cover for part of it, but the poster specific, the Playboy cover is the front facing shot. But if you look at the normal poster of the movie where it's like her like all the way like zoomed out, she's in that like arching like Jeffrey Dahmer pose that I think Podesta or
one of those sick DNC fucks had like a statue of a woman in that pose like in his house.
Talk about the secret messaging. The cannibalism secret messaging is like deep in some of this stuff. If you watch the movie Step Brothers, if you watch a Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like people are so on the pizza and the underage stuff. They're not as with the
what is the
Jeffrey Dahmer statue
messaging in those?
Yo, people want a fucking mainstream eating people. They
What-
want a
what-
mainstream
how
Soylent.
does it relate to Step
is a
Brothers
20-year
and
plan.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
I'm
just curious,
they-
specifically those movies you reference, like
The blue guy is a cannibal and wants to eat the main guy. And he goes on this whole monologue about how that doesn't even occur to most people.
in Guardians.
He's like,
Guardians,
and he goes,
yeah.
there's the blue guy. He's like, this doesn't even occur to people, that this is actually on people's minds. That like my motivation is that I literally just want to eat you.
Yeah, this is Guardians
Right?
too.
And then like, it's like,
I think it's Guardians 2, right?
no, I think that's.
Oh, is it 1?
I only saw one when it came out in theaters, so I don't remember it at all. What is it in Step Brothers? I've seen that movie enough that
When Will Ferrell is burying John C. Reilly in the backyard and talking about what he's going to do to slow his heart rate and how he's going to like, he starts talking about like the prep of like the whole
of like
Jeffrey Dahmer situation.
of like how to eat a person properly.
Yeah, with the tetrodotoxin and you fucking do the whole thing. Yeah.
That's actually pretty insane.
So that's the secret messaging. Right? And it's like the screenwriters don't know. You'll have 7 screenwriters working on a movie.
Which is always super.
And then the one that's billed is not the one that's responsible for
That
the
shit.
Under the Silver Lake motif that they put in there. Just like that songwriter. He talks to the artist and he goes, why'd you put this code in a song? And he goes, that song was actually given to me. I didn't write that one.
This movie was fucking buried. Ironic. Under the Silver Lake was buried.
Facts.
Season 2
much like the rich people and the women in this movie being buried, this film was also buried. This had such a shitty release by A24.
Oh, it had a terrible release.
That it premiered at Cannes 2018.
Yeah.
And then like it was supposed to come out that December.
Yeah.
And then it didn't come out, but then it got released in France, and then like it was like leaked online from like Blu-ray rips, and then like came out in like what, April 2019?
Yeah, it
Here?
came.
After it was already online.
Well, and didn't they do like they cut a lot of stuff from it too? Like the version that we see now was like cut.
No, the version that we see now
Is the original.
Is the original because David Robert Mitchell refused to cut it.
Oh, okay.
That was also the thing. A24 wanted to fucking cut it.
Yeah, they wanted to get it down, I think, to like less than 2 hours.
You can't. There's nothing to cut in this movie.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's funny that like this is the worst runtime for a movie. 2 hours and 20 minutes is like the worst runtime range, but like it's perfect for this. It
I can't think of anything you cut.
It doesn't. It also doesn't feel 2 hours and 20 minutes.
No.
Yeah, like it flows
Because there's
really
so
well.
much going on. Like it's so engaging because there's so much information being told to you in every fucking scene.
Yeah.
That like even like if you're not even just focusing on like the actual mystery, you want to focus on the mystery behind the scenes as well. So there's just like so much to think about that like you can't cut anything. And I applaud David Robert Mitchell for standing his ground on it. And I think that's part of the reason why this film got buried and stuff, because A24 is like, how are we going to market this? But I think that also speaks a lot, you know, with the subject matter of the film, that of course that a movie like this gets, you know, buried.
People who are in the know on certain things see the world through a different lens because they are in the know. But what I do like about that is that there's this whole conspiracy, and, you know, there's just like all these codes and everything like that. And it really is for this like Hollywood death cult where they think that the ultimate success is basically
kill yourself.
To kill yourself.
The world sucks and nihilistic, and it's like satanic in its message without ever saying anything expressing Satan.
Yeah, no, it is satanic because it's saying that like life is meaningless, so we have to go underground. Underground means to hell, to Hades, right? Underground, where there's absolutely no way we can come. It's like it's like the opposite of Plato's cave. It's like we are outside, we're enlightened, and because we're enlightened, we want to go back in the fucking cave, right? Yeah. And they want to go underground. They want to seal it off so there's no possible way they can escape, and they seal their fate with that. And they say, and there's going to be food, there's going to be wine, there's going to be television, and there's going to be lots of sex. None of those, all of those things are fairly inherently meaningless, just distractions. Distractions, they're delights, it's pleasure over meaning until they eventually die down there. And they say like, oh, but like, look at the world, like this, like who wants to live in this world? And it's, I pointed out that is kind of like almost like a Gnostic thought, right? That the world around you is like this illusion that's just terrible, that's actually evil. And
that's Gnosticism or agnostic?
No, that's Gnosticism. Because, you know, it's the idea of the demiurge. I mean, okay, so there's different variations of Gnosticism. There's like Valentinian, like the Valentinians, and like there's different schools of thought that are all kind of brought under Gnosticism. But one of the basic sort of ideas is like that it's almost like early Christian version of simulation theory, that there's a demon that is actually like our world is actually controlled by a demon, and what we see is actually not reality, and it's kind of inherently evil. So then nothing matters because like it kind of leads to nihilism. Well, that's one, like the Nicene Creed, you know, which if you grew up going to church, or, you know, like me, was a theology student, the Nicene Creed was really written to discount, or to basically say like Gnosticism is not a part of Christianity, because it was very influenced by Hellenistic thinking, you know, like 200 years after Jesus. It was really influenced by like the kind of the Greek thinking. I mean, it's like talking about like being satanic. It's like the original definition of that was like pagan, and like all the stuff is covered in like the Egyptian imagery. And there's obviously like the, you know, all the like. Well, there's the one Egyptian door. Like, well, and they say, oh, it's just like the pharaohs going under the pyramids. You know. They're sealing themselves in like an underground mausoleum. Type vibe. Yeah. Well, and then that also plays into the fact that there's the party that's inside the mausoleum and that's inside the cave, which foreshadows it's you know, it's this party where, you know, she's like, let's have sex, you know, and it's in the cave under the mausoleum, you know, in the crypt, and it foreshadows basically the end goal for all the people in this world of Hollywood is essentially to die of degeneracy. And you have to eat you have to eat the psychedelic cookie to get in. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have to poison your mind. Yeah, you got to poison your mind. You got to distort your worldview. And then you can descend, and it's a descension. I almost think it would be better off if you cut that last scene at the apartment when he's like with the, that's the only thing I could say maybe you could cut, is that it ends like right after he's released from the Hobo King, because it's such a beautiful realization that he, like, when he just finally admits, because like
he doesn't like ever admit what's wrong. He's just filling his life with sex and porn and trying to find these fucking mysteries and unravel them and trying to give it meaning. And he's just holding on to dog biscuits because he fucking misses his ex-girlfriend, and that was the last thing he had good in his life. And he sees that she's like engaged and stuff, and he hasn't been able to move past that. Like the dog biscuit symbolizing him holding on to that.
Yeah. Here's the Egyptian imagery right now with the eye of, is it the eye of Ra?
Or of either Ra
Osiris?
or Horus.
Horus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get my Egyptian gods mixed up. I'm not too into Egyptian mythology, but this looks cool.
Very
Ra's
underworld
the sun
focused.
god.
Yeah.
Ra's, yeah.
And it's almost like this may be just like reaching a bit, but like he's trapped by the homeless king. He's in these chains, and like he's set free once he admits, why are you having these dog treats?
Yeah.
Because I miss her. And then he's let go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like he finally comes to realization. He admits what his problem is and what he's longing for, and that's when he's like quite literally let go of the chains. So that could just be me reading into it, but like with a film with all this symbolism and codes and stuff, I don't think that's far-fetched to say that that's what David Robert Mitchell was going for in that scene.
You would cut the last scene with the grandma or the...
Because I don't think
And
it
the
adds
parrot.
The
anything.
gilf.
I think it adds a little bit because then he becomes part of the Hush Hush network, because they have the sign that says like "Stay quiet" in his apartment. And he sees that, and he realizes that he's become enlightened. He's become enlightened through this process, but the price of enlightenment is to keep it to himself.
Yeah, that works too. I mean, that's a good way of defending that last scene then.
Yeah.
And I do like that. That's
interesting.
I just felt for the emotional climax of like what he needed, I think it would be a little stronger without that scene.
Yeah.
But I do like what you're saying as well.
Because see, if he does not keep it to himself, then he's going to end up like the guy from, wasn't that guy in Mulholland Drive?
Yeah. Of course, like
he was in
The guy behind the dumpster?
No.
Yeah,
So
no,
but
but
he's the one behind the
he
dumpster.
sees the one behind the dumpster. In the
Yeah. He was the
Patrick Fisher.
He was the
Patrick
old school,
Fisher, yeah.
older schizo.
Yeah.
And like I think he also kind of represents like the path that Andrew Garfield is towards, because like he mentions is like, I should probably get a family so I have someone to leave all this stuff to. Like he doesn't even want like the family for the fulfillment. He's just like, well, I have all this stuff. I don't want it to just disappear.
Yeah, exactly. So who do you think this like Al chick is? Do you think it's just some like Hillary Clinton affiliate?
I don't think it matters, actually. I really don't think the Owl's Kiss matters. I think she's definitely...
Do you think she's just a stand-in for like their network of like how they can like kill anybody at any time? And
It's
I
like
mean,
obvious
they,
like Moloch imagery.
They say that she's connected with like the finance groups and stuff like that. So just like rich elite, just an assassin. Like she's like, the person that fucking puts 2 bullets to the back of your head and suicides yourself.
It's so funny that she's portrayed. It's so interesting that she's portrayed as this like really attractive, the way that she walks is seductive. She's completely naked except for the mask, and
which is just very eyes wide shut kind of feeling.
Yeah, and it's this sort of bridging of sex and death, which I guess there is that connection in here between sex and death, because when we look into the tomb where Riley Koo is, or where Riley is, or Sarah, as the character's name is, and the other woman is completely naked, and they're seen as like these like pleasure domes that are essentially ticking time bombs for them to eventually die in. Yeah. So in this film there is this connection,
like hourglasses.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's this connection between sex and death, which, me being a fan of Mishima, like I'm like, oh yeah, sex and death, they're one and the same. They're two sides. That's the yin and the yang.
I want to talk more about the the songwriter scene, because I feel like we've discussed most of the other stuff, and the songwriter scene is the most important scene, and it, to me, is one of the greatest scenes in cinema in general. I think that is the most truth about the world that I've ever seen in a movie. Like the secret truth, not like, emotional truth or anything like that, but like the, of how society works, and the fact that like he walks into this massive empty house, and one guy who's really old, which is like a normal, the actor's like a normal like guy. He's just in a shit ton of prosthetics that make him look super fucking old, older than like if you had a old guy. Like he looks fucking like really weird because he
looks like he's 300.
Yeah, which is what's great about it, because he's like I've been making music for your generation, your younger generation, your parents, your grandparents, like, which implies that like he's been around forever.
And the rebellion that those generations thought was changing things is actually being sold.
It's
controlled opposition.
Yeah, and just mirrors society so perfectly, because it's just like, everything that you think is real. That scene tells you that everything in the world is fake. That everything you see, none of it's real.
Well, he says when you're rebelling to my music. So there was a social engineering potential for, can you shape people through intention and cultural programming?
And the answer is yes. And they've been doing it forever.
Maybe you can, but maybe you can. It seemed like that's what he was saying. It seemed like he was saying, I've been shaping the generations.
He's been shaping the generations, which has meant that like society has progressed and people think that there's this free will to how they change society. We stood up and we did this and we did this, when in reality it's basically
Ratatouille.
orders. Yeah. It's orders from the top.
Yeah, it's Ratatouille, and it's the villains from Sailor Moon.
It then makes it kind of funny how Andrew Garfield kills him
easily.
No, not just easily.
With Kurt Cobain's guitar.
Kurt Cobain's
Kurt Cobain poster over his bed.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain's guitar, smashing a guitar, which is a rock and roll symbol.
Like rebelling in that.
Yeah, and of rebelling, smashing the guitar. I think the Who started it. Yeah. Smashing the guitar and became like this, we're like the ultimate rock stars. We're smashing guitars. And, smashing it into this face, and the guy's face probably looks similar to Kurt Cobain's face.
And I mean, like the Nirvana grunge music that was obviously promoted by the entertainment complex, very nihilistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally a song, rape me. Really? So the fact that he just kills him so easily, but I also really like the line of dialogue where Sam says to him, he's like, "You have everything," and then he just like somberly says, "No." So it's like he's nothing more than another tool. Like, that's the reason Sam was able to get in here so easily and kill him, because he doesn't matter. He's replaceable. The guy who's been writing the messages for fucking generations upon generations and writing these like important pieces of like fucking music and media and whatnot, even he doesn't matter, because he can be fucking replaced. That's how like meaningless all this fucking mainstream art is.
If you want to, like, I think a good like way to look at Under the Silver Web, right? Or Under the Silver Lake is that it's like a web, and Andrew Garfield's character is only occupying this like little space on the fringes of it, that even though he goes deep in, he does not get anywhere near the center.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just uncovering this little aspect of it, but it does enlighten him to the fact that this web exists.
Yeah.
And that he'll probably never know anything about the rest of it.
Yeah. But that's why, to me, this is just like the most important scene. And it's just like, there's just so much truth to it that like no other film has like spoken this, because it's like, even though the film is not grounded in reality, it still feels grounded in reality, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's a heightened reality. Yeah. It's not completely fantasy. It's not completely surreal. It's heightened reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it feel more real than something that's supposed to be grounded in reality.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you have to kind of get away from it, especially in art, in order to get at it, you know?
Yeah. And so stuff, as much as I love The Matrix and plenty of other like, conspiracy movies and whatnot, like none of them are speaking this truth. Stuff like Matrix, at the end of the day, it's like that's the same stuff as the songwriter's making. As much as I love The Matrix.
Isn't that what Baudrillard said about The Matrix? He said The Matrix is the kind of movie The Matrix would make about itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as great as the movie, it's one of my all-time favorite fucking trilogies, and it's like masterfully made. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's another fucking psyop along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like important to recognize that. And, that's probably another reason why that this movie could have been buried for logistical reasons that make total sense, which are the simplest things. But, it is a funny coincidence as well, the subject matter that this gives to people in such reality and plain truth that I have not seen in another movie, and then just also happens to get buried.
You don't have to bury it if people underestimate how much assistance anything gets that gains traction.
Yeah.
So you don't have to actively bury something if
that's what I meant by
burying. Just not
yeah.
elevating it.
Yeah.
Just ignore
at all.
That's what I meant by burying it. They're not like actively making sure people don't watch it. They're just not correct. They're not elevating it.
Right. And because people know how to do that. And so if you have people in the industry, they're like, they can just not feel for it. They can just be like, I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like, it's
and that's it. And then they try to just, have it be forgotten. So,
but these things tend to come back, like a lot of movies that weren't popular become popular many years later.
Yeah. I think this film is going to have long legs, and I think this is going to be one of those like actual true cult classics that as time goes on and more people discover this is going to be considered like one of those all-time greatest films. And not something like Southland Tales, which I don't understand the comparisons this gets to it at all. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The comparison to Southland
doesn't make
Tales.
they're two
And
totally
so many people
movies.
say that, and I feel like I'm like, is everyone else just literally a brain dead retard? Because there's no similarities really. But like Southland Tales is something that has gained a cult following over the years, but it's not like in the realm of classics. It's not something like Donnie Darko, which you mentioned earlier, which is something that gained a cult following, but it's like considered in the realm of classics.
Yeah, it is a cult classic. Like it completely.
Which also, they're both Richard Kelly, which I didn't even
mean
to make that
Kelly.
connection purposely.
No, I thought you were doing that purposely because it was Richard Kelly. Yeah. No, like Donnie Darko bombed, and it did terribly for like a year, and then it only started to pick up on home video, which here's the guitar smashing scene playing on the TV right now. But yeah, like that really is what I hate it when people say this is a new cult classic in the making. The movie's like doing fine at the box office.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, they'll just say about like fucking like Midsummer or
like this is a cult classic. No, it made
you
a lot of money.
don't know what a cult classic is.
Yeah, it made a lot of money.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be a cult classic, it can't make money. Yeah. No director wants his film to be a cult classic.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, yeah, I put in all this work, and maybe I'll get paid in 40 years.
Yeah, off royalties. Maybe
Yeah.
people will recognize my greatness then.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that. You want to get the payout,
But yeah, diminishing returns. Like this movie sums up what Charles says his thesis on like conspiracy brain rot. It's like the more you go into this rabbit hole, the more it's going to end up becoming diminishing returns at a certain point. It's like, what benefit is this? Or is seeking this knowledge really going to give you at the end of the day?
Yeah, exactly. Like your life is going to be the same ish.
If you're miserable and you have a shitty life, knowing the answers and all this esoteric knowledge is not going to save you.
I'm youtube.com/@thekinocorner.
You like movies that are literally me?
Or shocking. Actually, my second biggest video is on Lars von Trier. So
hey, that's someone that I bet a lot of people will say, hey, Lars von Trier is literally me.
Yeah, I did a video on Antichrist.
So him specifically, not his movies.
Yeah, no, Willem Dafoe and Antichrist is literally me.
Yeah. Damn. Packing.
That's what I meant. I only meant it in one sentence.
Yeah.